consider the nature of work. Work. Interpreting that term, work, explores the issue of motivation. People have organized or been organized for work from our earliest history. Consider the Great Pyramids of Egypt. One of those edifices, the Great Pyramid, is 75,600 square feet at its base. It's 480 feet high, has over 2 million blocks of stone, each weighing over 2 tons. The base of the structure misses a perfect square, though, by 7 inches. It was built without, as far as we know, the internal combustion engine, calculators, electronic devices, computers. People worked. Now, why did they work? They were forced. They were enslaved. Generally, ancient cultures distinguished creative initiative from work and despised work, believing that it interfered with the arts. So they employed slaves for work. There are exceptions. Those exceptions begin to emerge as history moves forward. Medieval monks built monasteries and engaged themselves the process. They recorded their time, they recorded their work, they were concerned with efficiency and productivity. What motivated their work? Why did they develop their crafts? They envisioned the outcome of work as glorifying a purpose to which they felt called. Then, as we move forward in time, within the Protestant Reformation was born the idea of work as a virtue. Theological ideas came into view. People came to understand themselves as led by the Spirit of God, called to a spiritual priesthood, gifted for service. Work took on a new meaning. It took on the shape of a contribution, a service to society from a willing heart. Work became fulfilling, became respectable, and idleness deplorable. Now, that's work. Think about the idea of productivity. Productivity is generally described as the ratio of desired consequent output to a measure of input. Output worth $100 from input worth $10 is very productive. Output worth $100 from input worth $105 is not productive. Efficient management of this process is thought to be the key to survival of an organization. We're familiar with budgets and productivity. In much of culture, motivation finds its utilitarian value around this matter of productivity. The question for managers becomes, how can we motivate people so productivity increases? The problem with productivity as an idea in motivation is the issue of what we measure, what we truly value. The measurement, that measure of value, productivity of work, when determined by one doing the work, may be different from the one who wants the work done. For instance, a painter values the beauty of her painting, the qualities she sees emerging from her dedication, her giftedness, her work, which might vary with a particular piece of work from another piece of her work. For the gallery owner who sells her painting, the value is what people will pay for it. So the creative artist may differ in the value they assign to their work from that value the gallery owner assigns to the same piece of work. For one, the value is its beauty, the excellence of the craft, what she's put into it, and the personal investment of the gift. For the other, it's the marketability. It's what somebody will pay for to generate their profit. Those can differ. Understanding motivation requires changing our concept of productivity and investing terms of productivity in the hands, or more importantly, the soul of the one actually engaged in doing the work. That's where motivation can click in. A broad review of some classic social science research in motivation is helpful here in the process of examining motivational theory. That review will help us visit some key theoretical contributions. One such notable work is the classic work of a gentleman, Elton Mayo, basing his research in the Hawthorne works of the Western Electric Company of Chicago back in the 1920s, almost from our time in which I'm talking to you today. We're talking a century ago, but interesting learning. Mayo asserts that motivation is conditioned by social relationships, and that the social world of the adult is carried out around their work activity. According to Mayo, it can be asserted that motivation is inspired through relationality, and that relationality is the joy of working from which motivation grows. Increasing productivity, recognition, affirmation then become more important than the physical elements in the workplace, and social groups have greater influence, Mayo asserts, over motivation than management, even than policies, etc. Mayo links motivation to the issues of relationality. Then examine Abraham Maslow. You're familiar with Maslow. A member of a Chicago group of psychologists and sociologists whose research is most often noted in that classic piece, Theory of Human Motivation, 1943. Motivation and Personality, then in the 1950s, 1954. Known for the research that led to the notion of a hierarchy of human needs. Psychological needs, safety needs, love, esteem, and finally, at the top of that pyramid is self-actualization. Maslow asserts that this is a hierarchy of motivation, with humans seeking the next higher one in the pyramid. Humans find motivation to progress to the next level in need. Maslow's contribution to our inquiry regarding motivation is revealed in this classic statement. It's a beautiful statement. A musician must make music. An artist must paint. A poet must write. If he is to ultimately be at peace with himself, what a man can be, he must be. Now, his theory can be helpful when considering the assertion of spiritual giftedness, when we speak of God's intention and purpose for our lives, revealed in special revelation. Our meaning, our purpose. The third contribution, classic work on motivation, Frederick Herzberg. He conducted research among 200 engineers and accountants in the Pittsburgh area. This was in the 1950s. He theorizes that people are motivated to find satisfaction through their work. In other words, people are motivated and they do express it in their work. He describes, however, two dimensions of job satisfaction in the work environment: hygiene and motivation. Hygiene, factors like policies, supervision, salary, working conditions, do not motivate, he says. But he says they can dissatisfy and hinder motivation. One can be underpaid and dissatisfied, thus hindering motivation. But motivation, he suggests, comes from another place, more inherent within human nature, within the human being. Motivation, he states, is linked to matters like having a responsibility, ability to seek actualization, to receive a sense of recognition, features of self, we approach work seeking to apply our motivation through the work itself. This observation, emerging from inquiry in the social sciences, lends reflection to the idea of creation, that we are created as beings who have this capacity in the image of God, who have creative ability. We can do. We can change things. We can progress. How often you hear that phrase, can do. And we are motivated to do so in relationship. And relationship is important to our true nature. Consider Douglas McGregor, his classic work, The Human Side of Enterprise. Now, this is in the 1960s. McGregor describes two management models. He labels them Theory X, Theory Y. Theory X managers, he finds in his research, can be clustered and identified, and they assume people dislike work and need to be controlled, rewarded, motivated through control, reward. Theory Y managers, in contrast, believe that energy given to work is as natural to the being as play or rest. People seek responsibility. They want to make a contribution, and they will direct themselves. They'll try to improve their work. They will do that. McGregor asserts through his research that it can be proven thriving organizations are characterized by Theory Y managers. Those managers who believe human beings find meaning, find joy in the natural expression of work through what they can contribute, what they can accomplish, can do. Again, science bends in the direction of people seeking fulfillment in application of their abilities. What does rationality, science, and experience contribute to the nature and practice of motivation when integrated with special revelation? Well, when considered as extrinsic, coming from outside ourselves, outside the person, motivation can equate with control, and often does in experience. Control of what others do. Getting people to behave, produce, perform in a certain way, and that's not actually motivation. It's control. True, we can control the behavior of others through external factors like policies, like remuneration, reward, or punishment. We may think we are motivating them to be more productive, but what we're really doing is imposing external controls and controlling behavior, and that's not motivation. I'm reminded of a humorous story. It's of a little 4-year-old boy, and he's disciplined by his father. This little boy has a strong will, and after repeating instructions several times in clear, reasonable, firm tones, the father places his hands on the boy's shoulder. The boy is saying, "No, no," and smoothly presses him into the chair, saying, "Sit down." Looking up now from his seat, sitting down as his father had said he needed to do, the little boy looks up at his dad and says, "I'm sitting down on the outside, but I'm standing up on the inside." Motivation, you see, is doing something because internally we are moved in that direction. We want to. It's intrinsic. It comes from inside the soul of a person. It is observed externally. Sometimes we say about a person, they're a self-starter. We observe it in people who take initiative, in those who find great joy in getting things done. But because it's observed externally does not mean it is imposed externally or can be produced that way. It comes from the heart and soul of a person.